Hey out there, legal warriors. In this video, I'm going to cover a question that someone wrote in the comments. Now, I'm going to read it word for word. False arrest or accusation. Will you be charged if no evidence exists? Now, that is quite a question. And the answer hopefully will interest you and probably scare you too. If you're interested in this area of the law, stay tuned. This is the video for you. My name is Attorney Lance Fryrear. I'm a defense attorney in Linwood, Washington. My law firm's been defending people charged with crimes all throughout Washington State for more than 20 years. Actually, it's going to be 25 years in a few months. But I'm putting out these videos to help educate the public. So if you find it useful, please like and please subscribe. More people get to see it. More people get the help they need. Now, thank you to the viewer out there who left this question in a comment. Because if I were to show you behind the scenes here what happens when I'm coming out to film videos, I'm not filming videos about pop culture or what's in the breaking news typically, those type of things, because they're not, it's not an entertainment, it's sort of edutainment maybe, but this channel is out there to try to help people get through some very difficult things. Being accused of a crime is very difficult, and a lot of the information out there is just trying to sell stuff or scare people. And so, I do the best I can to come up with topics that are helpful, but as you might imagine, after 500 videos, I'm like, what else do I know? So this viewer put a question about, hey, if you're falsely arrested or you're falsely accused, will you be charged even if no evidence exists? And if you're a deep diver into this station, you'll know that when people talk about evidence, I always say there's sort of no such thing as evidence. Evidence is one person's word versus another person's word. So can someone be charged without evidence? Well, absolutely they can, and really the answer is it depends. It depends on what the view of law enforcement is about what they consider evidence. Because who initiates criminal prosecutions in Washington State and in most states? Someone makes a report of a crime to law enforcement, or law enforcement sometimes independently observes what they believe to be a crime. But it's law enforcement that investigates the crimes. It's law enforcement that often initiates criminal charges for certain types of non-felonies, and is 100% law enforcement that refers felonies and other non-felonies to the prosecutor's office for them to decide what to prosecute. So if an officer hears a report from someone that some type of SA happened, right? If the officer takes that seriously, this words of someone saying that happened, then they may investigate it aggressively, and the only evidence may be that person's word. That officer wants to believe that person's word, then even though there's no evidence besides the person's words, they can go arrest that suspect. And the prosecutor can then read the report and say, yes, I'm going to charge that suspect because I choose to believe the evidence of one person's word. Now, when I talk about it this way, is most of us don't even think of evidence, but there's no evidence. Where's the video of me doing something? Where's the text message where I admitted to doing something? Where is the witness who says this happened, right? Where is the torn clothing or any other thing to show that something actually happened besides one person's word? And that's, when I've got the video out there that the truth won't save you, is because there is no objective truth. There's someone's version of truth, and then there's our version of the truth. And whatever the government chooses to believe is what they'll put their full force and power behind. And so if we're being falsely accused of something, it's going to be up to you and your lawyer to try to frame the issue in a way for law enforcement where they're more likely to sort of disbelieve the accusation. Or if we're in a situation where we might be either seen, let's say like a fraud case. In a fraud case, we might, let's do a different example. Let's say that you're asked to cash a check for somebody. Hey, would you cash this check for me? And someone gives you a check, it's for $500, go take it to the check cashing place. And you don't recognize the name, but it's this other person doesn't have an ID, so you're going to sign off on the check, supposedly written, they're going to write it off to you, you cash the check, you give the money to your friend. Well, later, it turns out that was a fraudulent check, right? and maybe you should have known better. A lot of you might be screaming at the screen, but a lot of people don't know any better, right? They just take people at their word. Well, in that situation, you got a choice to make. You could go tell the police, hey, I think I unwittingly took place in a check fraud situation, took part in it, and if the officer believes that because you came to them, if you're really guilty, would you come to them, right? The officer may choose to use you as a witness or a victim, and now you're not a suspect. Let's say that you don't do that, you're afraid, and maybe it'll never be followed up on by police, especially at that level. Well, if they do follow up on it, now they're coming to you, go, hey, you should have known better, or you did know about it, so we're charging you with a felony crime of some type of participation in a forgery or a fraud on the owner of that account or the check cashing place if it's totally fictitious. So in that case, Lance, there's evidence, right? However, how law enforcement interprets our involvement or our position will control whether or not they choose to prosecute or go after somebody. And so there is no direct, solid answer about what the right thing to do is, but there's 100% a solid and correct answer is that yes, absolutely, case after case after case is prosecuted without evidence besides the evidence of one person saying something happened. So it's your word versus their word. Who gets to the police first may make a difference. The police officer's own background and their own life experiences, right? If it's a domestic violence case and the officer that's being reported to has been through domestic violence stuff in their own life, they're more apt to believe someone's saying they're a domestic violence victim, right? If that police officer has a different experience, if they were falsely accused in their life and their mind, they're going to be less likely to believe that person. There's all these human elements that go into things. So what do you need to do? If you're being falsely accused, you don't want to overreact, right? So many times people are posting all these types of things on the internet, right? On the gram or could even be on Facebook or something like that. It's like, this person did X, Y, or Z to me, right? And let's say you didn't do that. And so you're freaking out and you want to fight it and defend it and do all these things. But what you need to do is talk to an attorney. So the attorney can try to use some intelligence to not try to clear your name, but try to keep you out of the government's crosshairs. Because the dangerous thing that happens, if we're in the government's crosshairs, if law enforcement thinks we did something wrong, they will do whatever they can with their huge resources and their attitude of, I'm going to go get you. They'll create a case, right? They will find a way to write up a report that creates a case. If they don't charge you themselves, they'll ask the prosecutor to charge you. So the most important thing to avoid being charged if we're falsely or wrongfully accused is to never get in a situation where that gets reported to law enforcement, or never get in a situation where law enforcement is apt to believe what that other person is saying over what we're saying when there's no evidence. Sometimes we might come up with evidence. Sometimes our evidence is our words. Hey, if I did this, why were they still hanging out with me? If I did, if I was accused of this horrible, whatever they're being claimed of, assault or something else, how come I have all these friendly text messages, right? That doesn't mean it's not possible to have happened, whatever you're being accused of, but it does make it less likely and causes some pause in law enforcement's brain. How law enforcement writes something up, the tone, the content, affects the reader. And who is the reader? The reader's the prosecutor, right? The reader's got stacks and stacks of reports. And a prosecutor can read between the lines. If it's written aggressively, terribly against the suspect, there's more pressure on the prosecutor to take action. If it's more of a statutory referral and the officer's sort of saying in the way they wrote it that there's not much there, they're like, yeah, I can read between the lines. The officer doesn't want me to charge this one. I'm not going to charge it. So out there, the viewer who wrote this, I hope this helps. It's terrifying that this is how the system works. It's how it works. It's an adversarial system. Please, please stay out from the crosshairs of the government. If someone's wrongfully accusing you, talk to an attorney so we can use some intelligence and some wisdom and some caution to decide, do we need to use aggression to try to prevent an injustice from happening? So I hope you found that useful. If so, please like and please subscribe. More people get to see it. More people get the help they need. More importantly, if you have a criminal matter, if you're being accused of something in Washington State, feel free to reach out to my firm. If we get on board, we'll listen to what happened, we'll identify a way forward, and we will be there for you. Thank you.